In all known high-stakes decision-making scenarios, gambling is undoubtedly the most extreme and ruthless laboratory. It is not merely a game or entertainment, but a sophisticated system that simultaneously pushes biology, behavioral economics, and environmental engineering to their limits. The system's stimulation threshold is so high that it can overload the reward centers of any normal brain to the point of dysfunction. Its business structure is so ingeniously designed that every seemingly trivial bet is skillfully sliced into microprofits with geometric growth potential, accumulating into staggering fortunes. And its physical space and internal process management meticulously capture every detail of a player's experience. From their path through the doors, breathing rate, lighting intensity, biological rhythms, to the dwindling thickness of their wallet, into an invisible yet powerful revenue network. In this system, refined and optimized over generations, the high players often describe is not a fleeting emotional lapse or a momentary lapse of willpower. It is, in fact, the inevitable endpoint of a precisely replicable, rigorously measurable, and even deliberately inducible physiological, psychological, economic chain. To understand this endpoint, we must first examine the macro ledger. According to the latest metrics from the Global Gambling Market Report in 2024, the total global betting volume, spanning physical casino tables, flashing slot machines, online sports betting, and various digital entertainment platforms, reached a staggering $5.7 trillion. This figure rivals the annual GDP of the world's top economies. Within this massive capital flow, the gross gaming revenue, GGR, the portion of funds players definitively lose with no possibility of recovery, amounted to roughly $572.6 billion. Simple calculations reveal this GGR accounts for approximately 10% of the total betting volume. This percentage, known as the overall hold rate or net win rate, is the core metric for gauging the gambling industry's profitability. However, behind this seemingly modest 10% lies immense complexity and regional variation. Breaking down the $572.6 billion in GGR, traditional brick-and-mortar casinos, including table games and slots, remain the dominant force, contributing about $308.5 billion, or 53.9% of the total. Rapidly growing online gambling follows with $93.2 billion, or 16.3%. Sports and esports betting, as emerging sectors, generated $72.1 billion, or 12.6%, while cutting-edge cryptocurrency casinos claimed an $8.1 billion share, or 1.4%. Though the global average hold rate is in the double digits, it fluctuates significantly across regions and game types. Take Las Vegas, the global gambling benchmark. In 2024, its slot machines averaged a hold rate of about 7.2%, while major table games, like Baccarat and Blackjack, reached 14.29%. In contrast, Asia, particularly Southeast Asia's sprawling integrated resorts, consistently maintains hold rates between 18% and 23%, far surpassing their North American counterparts. These cold financial figures reveal a profound paradox. If casinos relied solely on their explicit rake, the 2% to 3% service fee automatically deducted when players exchange chips or start a game, they could never amass such colossal industry revenues. That meager service fee might not even cover the exorbitant operational costs, including lavish decor, massive staff, and intricate security systems. Thus, the true driver of a casino's net win rate, and the backbone of this vast industry, lies not in the explicit rules but in a sophisticated system designed to keep players at the table longer, betting more frequently, increasing individual wager amounts, and, even after consecutive losses, irrationally continuing to chase bets in a state of high. This system is the essence of the casino's business model. Below, we will dissect this complex system layer by layer, starting from its foundational logic, to see how it is constructed and ultimately shapes the seemingly personal phenomenon of getting high. The first and most unyielding layer of this system is the probability structure, the mathematical bedrock of the casino's business model. Every gambling device, whether a tiny die, a meticulously shuffled deck, or the complex random number generators, RNGs, powering online games, is embedded with a fixed mathematical expectation. This expectation is designed to favor the house, ensuring the player's expected return is always negative. Each bet is essentially an independent, uncorrelated random experiment against this unforgiving mathematical expectation. Casinos subtly weave in a slight edge, such as the 0 and 00 on a roulette wheel, the slightly higher win rate for the banker in baccarat, or the preset payout rates in slot machines, locking their hold rate firmly in the positive range. It's as if, in every round of the player versus house experiment, the system covertly lowers the player's theoretical expected value by about 0.5 to 5 percentage points. In a single experiment, this tiny disadvantage seems negligible. Players naturally believe they can overcome it with a burst of luck or a streak of hot hands. But the casino's true power lies in its near-infinite time and capital, allowing it to engage in countless experiments. As the number of bets grows from a few to thousands or even hundreds of thousands, the law of large numbers acts like a 10,000-ton hydraulic press, crushing any fleeting deviations from the expected outcome into statistical dust. In the face of vast sample sizes, all random fluctuations are smoothed out, and results converge toward the preset mathematical expectation. Thus, a player's bankroll, no matter how thrilling its short-term peaks, inevitably trends downward toward zero in the long run. If the probability structure is the casino's philosophy, ensuring long-term profitability, the second layer, time leverage, is the technique that transforms theoretical microprofits into massive real-world gains. Purely based on theoretical probabilities, a casino's hold rate typically stays within single or low double digits. To snowball this modest percentage into the colossal profits that sustain the industry, the only effective method is to exponentially inflate the total betting volume. How? Simple yet ruthless. Keep players in the casino as long as possible, make them bet as frequently as possible, and ensure they don't leave due to temporary wins or losses. To achieve this, casinos invest staggering resources in environmental engineering. From the layout of the building, casinos are designed as mazes with no clear exits and complex, looping paths that subtly guide players to stumble upon new gaming areas while struggling to find the way out. Lighting is maintained at a constant brightness, somewhere between daylight and dusk, paired with scarce windows and deliberately hidden clocks to strip the brain of any cues about the passage of time, creating a psychological realm of frozen time. The air is infused with carefully curated fragrances, some proven to soothe emotions and spark pleasure. More crucially, many large casinos pump in higher than normal oxygen levels while strictly controlling carbon dioxide, reducing fatigue from prolonged mental focus and keeping players alert and excited. Background music, tuned to low to mid frequencies by acoustic experts, reportedly syncs with human heart rates, maintaining a slightly elevated but non-anxious state. Easily accessible high-sugar, high-fat food and drinks provide sustained energy, stabilize blood sugar, and indirectly boost dopamine release, sustaining euphoria. Free alcohol plays an even more pivotal role. It suppresses the prefrontal cortex, the brain's command center for rational thinking, risk assessment, and impulse control. Once the prefrontal cortex is impaired, players' decisions become more impulsive and short-sighted, with diminished risk evaluation. Combined with frequent smiles and subtle physical contact from well-dressed staff, especially female servers, this triggers oxytocin release, a hormone tied to trust and bonding, significantly lowering players' vigilance and desire to leave. Each seemingly trivial environmental intervention, when layered together, forms a powerful synergy, subtly shaping a visceral sense in players. I feel great. I'm not done. I want to keep going. This is the core of time leverage, amplifying total betting volume hundreds or thousands of times, allowing the casino's slight probabilistic edge to fully materialize. As players inevitably face losses in this distorted time and space, the third layer, loss aversion reversal, kicks in. One of the foundational theories of behavioral economics, prospect theory by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, shows that humans feel the pain of loss about twice as intensely as the pleasure of equivalent gains. Losing $100 hurts as much as gaining $200 feels good. This should be a powerful mechanism to avoid risk. Yet, casinos ingeniously exploit two other psychological effects, sunk cost and near miss, to reverse this mechanism, turning the pain of loss into a perceived investment cost that must be recouped through further betting. The most vivid interface for this is slot machines and roulette. Picture a slot machine screen where three matching symbols are just one slot away from a jackpot. The machine deliberately uses rapid, high-pitched sounds, dazzling flashes, and screen vibrations to create a visceral illusion of almost winning. Neuroscience reveals that, at this moment, the brain's association areas, responsible for integrating information and generating meaning, activate at levels nearly identical to an actual win. This intense false sense of achievement prompts players to irrationally reframe all prior losses as the cost of a ticket to the next win or necessary tuition. To avoid wasting this ticket, they unhesitatingly pour in more money, chasing the illusory hope of next time for sure. This psychological manipulation, which flips natural loss aversion into a motive for continued betting, is professionally termed the near-miss effect and is strongly tied to dopamine reward circuit activation. Next comes the fourth layer, the variable reward schedule. Rooted in B.F. Skinner's 1950s behaviorist experiments, the famous Skinner box showed that, compared to fixed, predictable rewards, e.g. food every 10 lever presses, a variable ratio schedule, e.g. food on average every 10 presses but randomly, drives the highest frequency of behavior in test subjects like pigeons or rats, and is the hardest to extinguish even after rewards stop. Casino designers are Skinner's most faithful disciples. Nearly all casino rewards are built on a classic variable ratio schedule. Random jackpots, sudden blaring jackpot alerts, exaggerated light and sound celebrations, and slowly accumulating prize pool progress bars create a vast, unpredictable reward system. Players cannot predict when or how the next reward will arrive. Their only option is to keep pulling the lever, pressing the bet button, or pushing chips to the table's center. This extreme uncertainty creates a cognitive gap in the brain, which naturally abhors uncertainty and blank information. To fill this gap, the most direct path is to keep betting for more information, hoping the next result reveals the answer. Thus, players' betting behavior and the casino's random rewards form an unbreakable neural feedback loop. Players no longer bet to win money but to resolve uncertainty and chase the thrill of anticipating rewards. As individuals sink into this self-reinforcing cycle, the fifth layer, social mapping, exerts an even stronger external influence. Casinos are meticulously designed social theaters, deliberately making the random redistribution of wealth highly visible and dramatic. Giant screens in prominent areas loop messages like, "Congratulations to Mr. Wong at table 888 for winning $1.2 million on a single bet." Empty chip exchange boxes are deliberately stacked at counters, hinting at massive cash flows. Even restroom entrances may display last quarter's top player winnings. None of this is accidental, it's designed to activate players' mirror neurons. When players see peers, other gamblers, hitting massive wins, the mirror neuron system triggers a powerful empathetic and imitative response, subconsciously fostering an overconfident bias. If they can do it, so can I. Conversely, witnessing others' devastating losses triggers the brain's self-protection mechanism, leading to attributional splitting. That's just bad luck. I'm in the better, more skilled group. These seemingly contradictory psychological mappings, one offering the fantasy of possible success, the other distancing personal failure, combine to create a stubborn motive to stay in the game, giving players endless reasons to keep going despite losses. If the first 5 layers target the player's psychology and physiology, the 6th layer, the wager amplifier, dismantles their final financial defenses through transaction mediums. Casinos know that the pain of payment from handling physical cash is the most acute. To dull this, they replace cash with colorful, uniform plastic chips, abstracting thousands, tens of thousands, or even millions into weightless symbols, drastically reducing players' sense of actual value when betting. For regulars and high-net-worth clients, casinos offer interest-free, reusable credit lines or markers, allowing players to keep gambling even after exhausting their cash, removing the natural stopping point of running out of money. Some casinos even let top-tier clients bypass cash counters entirely, using bank transfers or authorizations for large transactions. Paired with the privacy and luxury of VIP rooms, this system minimizes the psychological and physical barriers to escalating bets from tens of thousands to millions. Behavioral finance research confirms that the more abstract and symbolic the transaction medium, the lower the pain of payment. The wager amplifier doesn't alter game odds but exponentially magnifies absolute wins and losses, pushing total betting volume to new magnitudes. At this point, when all 6 layers operate simultaneously on an individual, interweaving and reinforcing each other, getting high ceases to be a random occurrence and becomes an almost precisely predictable, staged outcome. At the neurotransmitter level, dopamine drives hyper-focused attention on the next bet, drowning out everything else. The prefrontal cortex's self-control is partially or fully disabled by prolonged fatigue, alcohol, and emotional swings. Loss aversion is flipped into a motive for bolder risks, Betting amounts and frequency skyrocket on a near-vertical curve toward financial ruin until the player's final risk threshold collapses, entering a state of total loss of control. Looking back at the casino's financials, the seemingly modest 10% table win rate, amplified by time leverage and wager amplifiers, sees its base, total betting volume, expanded hundreds or thousands of times. The result, reflected in final financial reports, is often a true net win rate of 18% to 32% or higher. This is the casino's real profit source. Zooming out to a macro perspective reveals an even more thought-provoking structure. Globally, about 4.2 billion adults, roughly 56% of the adult population, engage in some form of gambling annually. Yet, the high-frequency gamblers, those betting at least weekly, make up less than 4% of this group, but contribute nearly 70% of global casino revenue. This tiny segment is the core clientele meticulously targeted and exploited by the high domestication system. Within the industry, they have an informal but widely used nickname, whales. They enjoy dedicated account managers, unlimited credit, and tailored luxury in VIP rooms. But in cold statistical terms, they are the decisive, towering nodes on the casino's revenue curve. A single uncontrolled spree by a few top clients can easily offset the scattered small wins of thousands of casual tourists, delivering substantial profits. If we view getting high as a complete, analyzable process, its input is ordinary players with a fixed budget, seeking entertainment or occasional investment, and its output is a group escalating bet sizes and frequency in a short time, unable to leave voluntarily. Through its interlocking six-layer logic, the casino turns this input-to-output transformation into a quantifiable, predictable, industrial pipeline generating stable positive cash flow. For players caught within, there are theoretically only two foolproof countermeasures. First, block the process at its outset by never entering the arena. Second, trigger an external, mandatory exit mechanism at any stage, such as enforced constraints. However, for most, complete abstinence is socially or practically unrealistic, and external constraints, like family intervention or law enforcement, often arrive too late after severe consequences. Thus, the most actionable approach for the average person is to proactively insert a deliberate circuit breaker between themselves and loss of control before entering. For example, write a detailed exit script beforehand, setting two inviolable conditions, such as stopping if funds drop by X% or if profits hit Y%, regardless of the game's momentum or emotional state. If self-enforcement seems doubtful, a more effective method is entrusting a clear-headed companion or third party to hold onto debit cards, credit cards, and mobile payment devices, acting as an external circuit breaker. In academia, this preset constraint is called a pre-commitment device and has been piloted in lottery systems and online gambling platforms in several countries. Studies show it can reduce losses from heavy gambling by 20% to 30%, with significant effect. To deeply understand the essence of getting high, we must dive into the micro level of neurotransmitters. Dopamine, the core currency of all reward learning circuits, doesn't simply correspond to winning or losing in a casino setting. What triggers intense, pulse-like dopamine spikes is the psychological concept of reward prediction error, the unexpected moment when outcomes sharply diverge from expectations. Whether it's a slot machine's reels stopping in suspense or a baccarat dealer revealing cards in a hushed moment, these create a narrow, critical time window. After placing a bet and before the outcome, the brain assesses probabilities based on past experience, forming an expectation. The next second, the actual result flips. If it starkly contradicts the expectation, whether a surprising win or a shocking loss, this gap creates a strong prediction error. The larger the error, the stronger the dopamine pulse. This explains why almost winning or almost losing moments, teetering on the edge, are far more stimulating than mundane wins or losses, continuously refreshing the brain's reward records. The casino's variable reward schedule normalizes these intermittent, high-intensity stimuli, keeping the brain craving prediction errors. Over time, the prefrontal cortex's impulse suppression, the rational brake, is systematically downregulated by sustained overstimulation, flattening the line between reason and impulse. At this point, getting high enters a neurologically irreversible phase.